8,000 infections. For weeks. And in China's southern province of Guangdong, entire neighborhoods are under lockdown, not for COVID-19, but for a virus spread by mosquitoes. It's called Chikungunya, and while it rarely kills, China is responding with military-style quarantines, forced hospital isolation, and drone surveillance over people's homes. Families are losing power for refusing inspections. Residents are being fined over $1,000 for having stagnant water in their backyard. The United States CDC has now issued a travel warning. And here's the question the world is asking. Is China containing an outbreak or building another nationwide lockdown nightmare? The epicenter of this outbreak is Foshan, a bustling manufacturing hub in Guangdong province, home to over 9 million people. In just 4 weeks, more than 8,000 confirmed cases of chikungunya have been reported across the province. The majority, over 7,000, are in Foshan alone. On July 19th, daily cases peaked at 674 in a single day. By August 8th, the number dropped to 148 new cases per day, but the situation remains tense. Chikungunya is not a new disease to the world. It's a mosquito-borne virus first identified in Africa in the 1950s, now spreading rapidly to tropical and subtropical regions. What makes this outbreak alarming in China is the scale and speed of infections, and the severity of the government's response. Entire hospital wards are being converted into isolation zones. Infected patients, whether severely ill or not, are forced to stay under mosquito nets for at least a week until they test negative. Authorities in nearby cities briefly required anyone traveling from Foshan to self-quarantine for 14 days, a policy eerily reminiscent of the early COVID-19 containment playbook. The government claims these measures are temporary and necessary to stop the virus from spreading beyond Guangdong. Yet, health experts say the outbreak coincides with peak monsoon season, when mosquito populations explode due to heavy rains and standing water. And with Guangdong being China's main gateway for international trade, the virus has plenty of opportunities to spread beyond national borders. To stop the outbreak, China has unleashed one of its most aggressive public health responses since the height of the COVID-19 pandemic. Armed forces are spraying insecticide across city streets, markets, and even residential courtyards. Video footage from Foshan shows soldiers in protective gear moving in formation, carrying high-powered sprayers, blanketing entire neighborhoods with a chemical fog designed to kill mosquitoes. Authorities have released so-called elephant mosquitoes, a species whose larvae eat the larvae of the disease-carrying Aedes mosquitoes. In ponds and canals, thousands of mosquito-eating fish have been introduced to wipe out breeding grounds. High-tech drones hover over rooftops, scanning for any sign of stagnant water, prime mosquito breeding spots. If suspicious water is spotted, teams are sent in to drain it or treat it with larvicide. Residents are under strict orders to eliminate standing water around their homes. Failure to comply can lead to fines of up to $1,400. In several reported cases, households that refused inspection have had their electricity cut off until they allowed health officials inside. Infected individuals are being placed in hospital isolation wards, sleeping under mosquito nets for at least a week, regardless of symptom severity. This is not voluntary. Police and local health officers ensure that quarantine orders are enforced, and breaking them can result in criminal charges. For many residents, the sudden lockdowns and aggressive tactics feel eerily familiar, like the COVID-19 era all over again. And while officials claim the measures are working, some locals fear the cure might be more damaging than the disease itself. In Foshan and across Guangdong, daily life has been turned upside down. Street food stalls that once filled the air with the smell of sizzling noodles now stand empty. Outdoor dining is banned in many districts to prevent mosquito exposure. Night markets, normally packed with shoppers, are silent, their neon signs dark. Schools in the most affected neighborhoods have suspended in-person classes. Students attend lessons online again, a déjà vu moment that reminds parents of the long months of COVID lockdowns. Residents speak quietly to foreign reporters, worried about retaliation. Some accuse authorities of exaggerating the threat to justify expanded surveillance. Others are convinced the danger is being downplayed, pointing to friends and family who became seriously ill despite official reassurances. Local factories are struggling to meet production quotas. Workers are absent due to illness or quarantine, and export delays are piling up. Foshan's role as a key supplier for global electronics and furniture markets means the economic ripples could soon be felt worldwide. For many, the return of travel restrictions, mandatory health checks, and constant inspections has triggered anxiety and exhaustion. "It's like the pandemic never ended," one shop owner said. "We've just traded one virus for another." This mix of public health crisis, economic slowdown, and rising public frustration is putting enormous pressure on local authorities. Pressure that could escalate if the outbreak spreads further. The outbreak has not gone unnoticed beyond China's borders. The U.S. Centers for Disease Control and Prevention, CDC, has issued an official Level 2 travel advisory for southern China, urging travelers to practice enhanced precautions when visiting Guangdong. This includes using mosquito repellent at all times, wearing long sleeves, and avoiding areas with known standing water. The U.S. Embassy in Beijing has sent notifications to American citizens, warning that local lockdowns could be enforced with little or no warning, and that movement restrictions may prevent travelers from leaving affected districts. Vietnam, Laos, and Thailand have stepped up health screenings at border checkpoints. Travelers from China are being monitored for fever and joint pain, two early symptoms of chikungunya. The World Health Organization says it is in close contact with Chinese health officials, but has stopped short of declaring an international health emergency. Scientists are analyzing genetic samples of the virus to determine whether this outbreak involves a more aggressive strain. With Guangdong serving as one of China's manufacturing powerhouses, international markets are already watching for signs of disruption. Shipping delays from Shenzhen's ports are being reported, raising fears of supply chain slowdowns similar to those during the COVID-19 pandemic. While the international response is still measured, the growing number of countries imposing checks or issuing warnings signals a shift from viewing this as a local outbreak to a potential regional crisis. Chikungunya is not new, but for most people outside tropical regions, it's unfamiliar and unsettling. The word chikungunya comes from the Makonde language of East Africa, meaning that which bends up, a reference to the contorted posture of those crippled by severe joint pain during infection. The disease typically begins with sudden, high fever, often over 102 degrees Fahrenheit 39 degrees Celsius. Within a day or two, patients experience debilitating joint pain, sometimes so severe they cannot walk. Other symptoms include headache, muscle aches, nausea, fatigue, and skin rashes. While most people recover within a week, joint pain can linger for months or even years in some cases. Chikungunya is spread primarily by Aedes aegypti and Aedes albopictus mosquitoes, the same species responsible for dengue and Zika. Once bitten by an infected mosquito, a person becomes contagious to other mosquitoes for about a week. Although fatalities are rare, infants, the elderly, and people with chronic conditions such as diabetes or heart disease face a higher risk of complications. In rare cases, chikungunya can cause neurological damage, heart inflammation, or liver failure. Southern China's warm, humid climate, combined with dense urban populations and stagnant water from heavy summer rains, creates ideal breeding grounds for Aedes mosquitoes. While there's no specific antiviral treatment or licensed vaccine, scientists warn that climate change is expanding the mosquito's range. Diseases once confined to the tropics are now appearing in temperate zones, including parts of the United States. This means the Guangdong outbreak isn't just a Chinese problem, it's a warning for the world. The Guangdong outbreak isn't happening in a vacuum. It's part of a larger, more dangerous trend. Scientists have been warning for years that Aedes mosquitoes are moving into new territories as global temperatures rise. Warmer winters mean the insects survive year-round. Increased rainfall and flooding create more breeding sites. In the past decade, chikungunya has appeared in Italy, France, and the southern United States. Florida reported its first locally transmitted case in 2014. Since then, Texas, Louisiana, and even parts of California have seen sporadic infections. Higher temperatures don't just help mosquitoes survive. They make them more active and shorten the time it takes for viruses to replicate inside them. That means faster, more efficient transmission. Megacities like Guangzhou and Shenzhen have dense populations, ideal for mosquito-borne diseases to spread quickly. Add global air travel, and an infection in Guangdong today could appear in Los Angeles, Miami, or New York in under 24 hours. Public health experts say the world needs to treat outbreaks like this not as isolated events, but as part of a new normal driven by environmental change. Without coordinated action, vector control, vaccine development, and climate mitigation, these viruses will keep jumping borders. This is why the US CDC's warning about southern China isn't just about China. It's about the future of disease risk everywhere. While Chinese state media insists the outbreak is localized and under control, the rest of the world is not taking chances. On August 2nd, the Centers for Disease Control and Prevention issued a Level 2 travel notice for southern China. Travelers are urged to take enhanced precautions. Use insect repellent with DEET, wear long sleeves, and avoid areas with standing water. The CDC also warns that returning travelers with fever and joint pain should seek medical attention immediately. Vietnam, Thailand, and the Philippines have all stepped up mosquito control campaigns at ports of entry. Airports in Bangkok and Manila are screening passengers arriving from Guangdong for fever. The World Health Organization has not declared a public health emergency of international concern, but says it is closely monitoring the situation. Critics point out that this was the same language used during the early days of COVID-19, before the outbreak spiraled. While there is no licensed chikungunya vaccine for general use yet, several candidates are in late-stage trials in the US and Europe. In the meantime, prevention remains the only defense. Trade groups in Hong Kong report that cross-border traffic with Guangdong has slowed sharply. Some logistics companies are imposing surcharges for shipments from the affected region, citing uncertain quarantine requirements. The message from global health authorities is clear. Even if the outbreak stays within China, the world must prepare for the possibility it won't. No one knows exactly how far China's chikungunya outbreak will spread, or how long the lockdowns will last. In the best-case scenario, aggressive mosquito control works, the infection curve flattens, and the world moves on. In the worst case, the virus leaks into neighboring countries, cases surge across Asia, and the mosquito species Aedes aegypti, already present in parts of the United States, becomes a domestic threat. Public health experts warn that warmer temperatures and global travel make such scenarios increasingly likely. The next pandemic might not come from the skies like COVID, says Dr. Susan Kim, an epidemiologist at Johns Hopkins. It could come from the backyard, brought by a single mosquito. For China, the outbreak is more than a health crisis. It's a test of trust. Can its leaders respond transparently? Or will secrecy and overreach deepen the mistrust born during COVID? And for the rest of us, the question is uncomfortable but unavoidable. If China is willing to impose sweeping lockdowns for a disease that rarely kills, what will it do if the next outbreak is worse?